Experiences come after you leave the relationship. When you release the thing, the person that no longer serves that season of you, the experiences come once you let go. The most important relationship we have to cultivate is the one with ourselves. And when we're in a relationship with someone who doesn't allow us space to evolve, they're also not evolving. There's no growth within there for you to cultivate that relationship with yourself. That is when it's stopping your growth. Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katerina. I work with shadows, I work with loops and patterns, and I use astrology as a tool to help me decipher those patterns. My goal here is always to bring you back to source, yourself, your oneness, in whatever modality that we work with in this channel, is to get you and myself into the version of ourselves that our soul wants to be at. It's always evolution and growth. So in this video, I want to talk about relationships. I have been through one of the most transformational relationships. I have been through soul relationships, and I have been through boundary asserting relationships. I also have Pluto Venus conjunction, which I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about because most likely you can guess what that is, but until you've lived it, you probably don't know what that might bring. Like, I really think with working with astrology, it's great when you actually hear the person's lived experience and what that looks like in order to be able to help them through that process, maybe. But today, I just wanted to speak about relationships as a whole to understand the growth, the learning, the evolution, and through my own experience, what has come out the other side of those experiences. I want to talk about the longest relationship that I had, and that will be the premise of what I speak about, because that relationship was 8 years long, and it really shouldn't have been that long. Like, I'm being so truthful, and I tiptoed into it last episode, but like, I should not have stayed in that relationship. My confidence was absolutely zero. At the beginning, it wasn't great. Like, I think that's why that person was attracted to me, because, and there's no shade to that person at all. I really value what I learned about myself within that relationship, but it was not a nice one, and it was toxic, and they were aggressive, and it was manipulative. So for me, when I left that, I realized, oh my goodness, like, I was a shell of a person. And when I fully left it, when there was like no going back, it was done. It took, I would say, it even took like over a year for me to realize actually that was not a good relationship. That was toxic AF. And the things that they did, it took me that long to realize that they were manipulative and that they were toxic, and that I should have left sooner. So this wasn't like when it was done, I was like, oh God, that should have left sooner. It took a year, at least a year, for me to realize that that shouldn't have gone on as long as it did. And life happens, we all go through our own journeys. We cannot force others to make choices when you think they should make the choices. Like, they are on their own path and at their own journey. So in no way am I sitting here telling you to like end your relationship if that's not what you feel right now you're ready for. But this is just more as in, when the relationship with the person, I'm specifically talking about relationships here, we could talk about any other subject, but my experience has been relationships where the growth, the experiences come after. So this relationship ended because the universe took over. I had many opportunities to end it, and I really, like, looking back, I really do think I had many opportunities to end it, and I never did. And the huge reason was fear. I I genuinely thought I was like completely unlovable, and I thought this is the only person that would love me, and that comes from being with like a very toxic person who makes you feel like you're not lovable. um but I didn't think I was lovable. So when those opportunities came up, I would swallow that voice that said to me to speak up, because I just thought no one else will come. Like, I will literally be alone for the rest of my life if I leave this relationship. And I think the other part was fear, not fear of being alone, but fear of like what comes next if I did that. I think about this specific moment, and I'm not going to say what that moment was, but I was sitting there after this whole thing had happened, and I was sitting there thinking, like, this is not love. You don't do this to someone that you love. You do this to someone that, like, you don't value, you don't respect them. Like, you don't do that to someone that you love, right? And respect, most importantly. And I think there was a huge thing of, yes, unlovable. That was like the first thing that came into my head. And the things that came into my head is like, maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to do better, do something else. Maybe I need to not talk that way that would create that reaction from him. Maybe I just try too hard. Maybe like all the things that are coming in your head. And the whole reason I say this is because I had many opportunities to end it. I do. Like, I really looked back and I thought I had many opportunities to like move through that fear that, like, literally my whole body was shaking to speak up and say something. And I swallowed it and I swallowed it and I swallowed it, and it got harder and harder to be around that person. We kind of lived our separate lives in the same place, but I was in one room, he was in the other, and it kind of just got harder and harder until like one point, and it just like came out of him, and I had to leave. I didn't have a choice. Like, I had to leave. I truly believe the universe did that, or Pluto, whoever you want to think of. But like, because it could have been a lot worse in that moment. It could have been a lot worse. So I had no choice but to leave. There was no other way. Like, I had to go, right? And I had to start my life again. And it was really hard and it was really scary and I didn't know what to do, and I had to force myself out. I went to like this, obviously this wasn't immediately, it was about 6 months afterwards, where I had to like force myself to go to meetups in and around London, because I was like, didn't know anyone at all. And I had all these experiences that would have not come had I stayed in that relationship. Those experiences, number one, made me realize that I am beautiful. And not just because they came from men, but they came from like energies, like men and women, but also just putting on a nice outfit and like going out and feeling good. That hadn't happened to me ever in that relationship. So it wasn't so much as in like having experiences from other people. It was almost like the universe said to me through the feeling of within myself was that, see, you're worth so much more than what you were putting up with. Look how abundant the world is. And I could just feel it. I could feel it in the clothes that I was wearing. I could feel it in walking down the street. I could feel it in the rooms that I went into. I just felt like a different person. And it grew slowly and slowly. But it was something that would not have come had I stayed in that relationship. That relationship needed to end in order for me to experience life, to breathe like life back into my body. I was like, I say this in the nicest way to me, but I was a zombie. I just thought that was what you deal with in life. And I had no passion. Oh, I nearly ate the mic then. I say all of that and I give you that kind of the stuff that happened in my life at that point, because I would not have had the experiences that I had I stayed. And I've said that about 3 times already, but I genuinely wouldn't have. And I'm saying this because I didn't actually make that choice. The universe made that choice for me. I could have made that choice. I could have like literally felt the fear and walked through and made that decision for myself. But I stayed. And that's why I say it shouldn't have lasted as long. And everything happens for a purpose, it's not that I would change that at all. I'm just saying from my experience is that if you feel that like knowing that this isn't it, this is not it, and it should be more. It's going to end, and I mean so respectfully, like it's going to end just like it matters, like just kind of don't know when. Could happen in 10 years, could happen tomorrow, could happen in 6 months, you don't know. But it will end. And the way it will end will force you to do different, become different, to transform, to have a death and rebirth. But if you have autonomy and if you chose the way that it ended, it might not be as intense. Like for me, if I ended it, like the experience that the way it ended was really crazy. Like anytime I've told like family or friends, all of them mouths dropped that happened. So I'm saying is the way that my relationship ended, my long-term relationship ended, did not need to end that way. It was crazy. It really didn't need to end that way. But it ended that way because I was so scared. I was so scared of leaving. And I do think I was scared of leaving because of the way that they portrayed me to feel. But I also know that I have autonomy over my decisions and myself. And at that moment, I could have just like really just been like, okay, no more. I didn't even need to say anything. I could have just left. Obviously, because the way they were, not because I'm a dick. But I say all of this because this isn't about me telling you that you need to end that relationship. You know yourself if you want to or not. I'm not here to tell you that I have no right to tell you that. All I am saying is that experiences for you might come after that relationship ends. And I'm not saying you'll have no experiences until then. But if you're on a soul growth journey, if you're trying to evolve, not even into the next version of you, but into a more aligned, fulfilled self, and the person you're with doesn't support that alignment, you can only get so far. They stop your growth, whether because you trigger them or because they can't see past what you have been and they can't imagine that now you have new ideas and new views on life and new ways of thinking and believing. Like, they just, whatever it is that they can't see past that, they are stopping your growth in some capacity. And if you're sitting here like no, this isn't my relationship, like I'm really happy, then this video obviously isn't for you. But this video is like for my young self. She knew deep in her soul that this was not meant to be. And I'm doing this video for her, for the versions of you that were like me, because the experiences did come afterwards for me. I tried to be focused on growth, meditating, and I was just laughed at. I was not made to feel supported in that space by that person. So I stopped what I was doing in order to make myself more palatable towards them. And that's what I mean when I say they're stopping your growth. My growth was stopped because I allowed it to, because I was scared and I needed to stay in that relationship in order to feel safe. And we can go into like a different response with trauma responses, and you know, the like our history, our trauma has taught ourselves that boredom, that things that are actually safe are not safe, because our nervous system only knows one type of feeling. And if you were born into chaos or brought up in chaos of some sort, your body has adapted that to be the safety. So therefore, you don't know anything else other than that. So therefore, when you're in a relationship and it is calm, you might either try to create drama, or you might get really nervous and feel like it's ending because it's calm, but actually that calmness is a quote unquote normal relationship. The boredom is a sign that like you're in a normal relationship, but because you were brought up in chaos, you don't, that's not the safety. The boredom is not safe to you because you were brought up in chaos. I highly recommend you read The Body Keeps the Score, because it's a very good book. But anyway, the experiences, and that these aren't grander experiences. Yes, I traveled to Japan, I traveled to San Diego and LA. I would not have had those experiences had I stayed in that relationship, right? But also, I went to a coffee meet up with a load of strangers and got speaking to those people. I went on dates with guys that really taught me that like the relationship that I have with myself is the most important one. I had experiences where I was like working as a freelancer for restaurants in and around Hackney that I had never done before, and I wouldn't have done that had I been in that relationship. I went to a yoga retreat, would not have done that. I joined like all these meetups. I went to dance, like salsa lessons in the bar Salsa in Temple. Like, I had all these experiences that I would have not done. And yeah, that might be like single life, but also I believe that if you were in a relationship that was supportive, you would have those experiences. They might come with you. You might do salsa classes together, which would be so much fun. But you wouldn't have had someone who's bringing you backwards. You would have had someone who's walking with you, like holding your hand and going through that journey together. So I do feel like this video is for the person that knows deep down. Like, you know, deep down, you're just really scared. And I've been there, and I really have been there. And it's okay if you want to wait until the universe does it. That's okay. But if you want to, if you feel it and you just want to start that conversation, then that's okay too. And also, it's okay if you know, like, especially if you've been brought up in chaos, it's okay. Like, I just, you need to know that that is your nervous system. That is not fact. Your nervous system is scared because your nervous system only knows one type of safety, and it doesn't matter if that is actually not physically safe. That is the only safety that your nervous system has known. So if you were brought up with parents shouting all the time, you only know that. If you were brought up with, like, one parent and that parent always brought home different people, that's the only safety you know. If you were brought up that you had to actually fend for yourself, or you were abandoned, or you had to go through things that were not nice at all, that's the only safety that you know. So I think it's really important to understand that, like, it's not you. It's not actually you. It is your nervous system. And until you regulate that, and until you work through that trauma, I know I actually a group that I'm part of, they were speaking about EMDR yesterday, and I've heard someone close to me, had they had a lot of childhood trauma, and they did EMDR, and it took them down somewhere, but now they're on the other side, and they're just like, I would have stopped, but something in me told me to carry on, even like though that it was quite dark at the bottom. And now they said, I just don't regret it at all. It was generally the best thing that I've ever done for my own healing. So if you have gone through that stuff, definitely see if you can look into EMDR, because I've heard from not just two sources, but I've heard from a few people that EMDR is actually a really great thing for specifically any childhood trauma that you might have. But just to know that that conversation that you're scared to have with that person is a trauma response. That is a nervous system. Your nervous system does not know that you can do that, because it's been taught that that's not something that is safe for you to do. So the only job that you have is to reparent yourself. And that sounds like really boring, and it sounds like really hard to do, but it is something that is the only thing that can get you out of this. Unless you're happy living like this for the rest of your life, then go for it. But if you actually want to stop being this way, stop putting other people before you, stop, like, pausing your life because you're scared, the ways to work through that are by, like, getting to the core of the reason, supporting your nervous system throughout that process, and making sure your nervous system knows that it's okay to, like, act different now. I started this conversation being like, oh, the experiences after you exit, but it's got a bit more deeper than that. But I'm not saying the experiences come after the relationship, because I'm saying, look how amazing your life would be. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying things that you are meant to be doing in your life, whether it is going on a date and talking to someone who genuinely transforms your mindset, and then you go down a deep dive of something, and you never see them again, but you go down a deep dive of something. This is you going to a different country that you've never been to, and you fall in love with that culture, and you decide to learn that language. Whatever the experience is, it can be small but transformative. It can be big and life-changing. Whatever the experience is, it is waiting for you to exit that relationship in order to become that. Or it is asking you to have the open conversation with the relationship that you're in, and to say, this is where I want to go. This is how I want to be now. This is what I want to work on myself with. Are you in with this? Are you in this with me or no? And if they are like, oh, I'm open, then I think that's a really beautiful thing, and that's like a cultivation of a relationship that could work. But if they're getting annoyed, I don't know, it's so simple, but like if they're getting annoyed at you, you're working on your health a bit more and you've started to like lose weight maybe, or like build muscle or something. You're going to the gym a bit more and they don't like that. My question to you would be, if that was a friendship, would you stay? If you were going out to dinner with your friend and you were talking about your life and the stuff that you've been through, and like you would have a really like open, vulnerable moment, and they just ignored you, or they like projected it, you would go home being like, I don't know if I want to be friends with that person anymore. And I think because I've been through a really intense relationship, yes, but I've been through relationships after that were short and transformative. Hi, Venus, Pluto at the end of the day. But I've also been through a relationship that was soul like growth worthy, right? And I have learned through all of my relationships or the dates or whatever that I've been through is that the one thing that is not controllable is a relationship. The one thing that you have to surrender to is the fact that this relationship might not be the one for life. And that's just like something that I've learned, I've gone through. And I'm not saying that because I've had no dating or like ignorant. I'm saying that from my own life experience. I've had like, I would say like I'm done with Pluto Venus relationships, transformative relationships. I'm done with it. But every single one has taught me a different version of myself, and every single one has taught me that like I cannot control this. Like this is the one thing that I cannot control. I can get up and focus on myself every day, and hopefully that pours into that relationship, right? I can get up and show my love to that person every day, but I cannot control them in any way, shape, or form. And if they choose to leave, then that is something that is genuinely out of my control. And I feel like once you surrender to that idea, that as long as you are pouring into yourself, you're pouring into them, and you have an open and vulnerable relationship with each other, that's all you can do, you know? That's all you can do. So I say all this to say, I guess two things. The one thing is, the reason you might not be wanting to have that conversation about that relationship with that person is because your nervous system does not know that that is safe, and your childhood trauma has created a narrative to believe that chaos is love when it's not. That is like a childhood trauma bond. Chaos is not love. Calm, peaceful, sometimes boring is the love. And it, like lots of different factors in that, but I'm just saying as in like those two versus each other, calm versus chaos. And then the other part of this is the what sounds superficial, yes, but it's not. The experiences that you will have will come more and more when you are surrounded by people who want that growth for you and support you through that. They will come less when you are around toxic people. And through an astrological lens, that is out of your control. Like at the end of the day, at some point in your life, that is out of your control. It will get unbearably loud, whether externally or internally, is dependent on your chart. Until you realize that you are the source and you are the person that needs to cultivate the relationship with yourself. And when you do that, those things will naturally release themselves from you. But when you're holding on tightly to it, it does create more chaos in your life. Obviously, depending on where your Pluto is, but like Pluto's conjunct my Venus, so like that is love stuff. Pluto in your seventh house, that would be prevalent. Um, Pluto in your second house would also be prevalent. Maybe not so much with like lots of chaos, but with your own worthiness, yes. And then obviously, like I said, if Pluto is conjunct your Venus, um, then it is tied to love, whether you like it or not. I'm joking. I love my Pluto Venus. I have come to adore the fact that I love depth, and you can't take that shit away from me. Like, if someone tells me that I'm being too much, exit door one, please, because that's like I just am that. That is part of me. I'm part of it. You cannot take that away from me. My Venus Lilith shadow work guide, the workbook, actually would really help with this. To understand your Venus placement, to understand the trauma behind your Venus placement, to understand your Lilith placement, and also the rage behind that. Like, I have Venus in Lilith, and that is like the rage behind like keeping my mouth shut because I want to keep the peace. And I am still learning to speak up when I need to. And it's hard. It is really hard, but like that is Lilith at the end of the day. Lilith has been suppressed because of a Lilith shadow, but also because of society. We've been told to suppress rage as a whole, like suppress anger. I think for like men or women, like it, we have been taught to anger is a bad emotion. Anger's a natural emotion. We need to release anger. The thing that's bad is when we suppress it. And that's been shown to create illness and so many things. So, like, having capacity to release anger is necessity. It is necessity. It is a necessity to release anger. So, if you want to understand what is keeping you stuck in love, in your worthiness, in the feminine magnetism and feminine rage, if you want to understand that, then my Venus and Lilith Awaken Your Magnetism workbook is actually really apt for that, I would say. And that's linked below if you're interested. I'm going to leave it with this. And I'm going to take this quote from my sister. If you have a child, or if you were going to have a child, or if you have a niece and nephew, because I have a niece and nephew, and they were going through what you're going through right now, what would you say to them? Or even the harder question to ask, which makes me a bit sad sometimes when I think about it. But like your child's version of you, your child self. What would you say to them if they were watching you right now go through the shit that you're going through in that relationship? What would they say to you when you're crying in your car because of that relationship? Or you're crying in the bathroom because of that relationship? And they were watching you, whichever one connects to you, your child, your niece or nephew, or your inner child. Whatever step you take right now is okay. Like, it's your path, it's your life at the end of the day. You have autonomy over your life, but also I understand why you wouldn't make that choice. Like, especially if you have a lot of childhood trauma, you know, I understand that. But I think the first step that you can do is to cultivate a relationship with yourself, work on healing those wounds, work on regulating your nervous system, and then reevaluate the relationship and see if you want to take a different move after that. If you're scared to at the beginning, that's absolutely fine. But I think my point is that like it most likely will, especially if it is really bad for you, or especially if it's really toxic for you, or it's a lesson that Saturn or a test that Pluto is like sending you in a way. And again, I'm saying that from my own lived experience. Like Saturn, Pluto have been that, done that, got the t-shirt. I know those experiences, so that's why I'm bringing those two planets into play. But when you release that relationship, or like you have the ability to move forward from that. But most likely, especially if you have a strong Pluto placement, Saturn as well, like if Saturn's in your seventh or Pluto's in your seventh, or maybe Saturn Pluto in your first, or again Saturn Pluto conjunct your Venus, maybe. At some point it will happen. So I think if you're too kind of, you're not ready yet, and that's fine. I would say cultivate a relationship with yourself. Go to therapy, do the EMDR if that relates to you. Regulate your nervous system. So when that day does come, it's not as like jaw breaking, because I think every relationship you've been through, like everyone says, like it was the end of the world at that moment, right? You just didn't know it was coming, especially when you didn't see it coming. But I think mine was, I think it's because afterwards I realized it didn't need to be that long, and I could have stopped it at a certain point. And it's okay that I didn't. Like, I'm not saying that it should be a different way or anything like that, but I'm saying it for this context of that mine was completely like earth-shattering moment that I did not know. And because I had let that person get me to like a complete, did not recognize myself at all, absolutely categorically can say this with my heart, at that moment hated myself completely, thought I was like absolutely the most unlovable person in the world, and no one would ever find me beautiful or love me or anything like that, right? That I realized when I look back at that moment, and I'm being really honest here, is that was chaos. That was a chaotic time. And it didn't need to be like that. Or it didn't need to affect me as much. Had I known at this moment, and that's why I'm saying I'm like talking to my young self, is because like regulate your nervous system, work on your childhood trauma, and that relationship won't be so earth shattering when it ends, because you've cultivated a relationship with yourself, which is honestly the most important thing. You will spend 100% of your life with you. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to make that the most important one? Anyway, I just want to say thank you so much if you've watched all this video. I know it was a bit not linear, but it's something that I've been thinking about for, I would say, the last 3 weeks to talk about. And that is because there are two things that I have a lot of lived experience with. Actually, three things: health, finances, and love. I've had a lot of experience with that in my lifetime. And I don't speak about relationships as much, even though I love speaking about relationships. I love talking about love. I love like poetry about love. Like, I'm just love all that shit. But I think because they were quite like heavy experiences and very transformational for me, that sometimes it's a conversation that could go deep quite fast. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. And again, My Venus workbook is down below. It has shadow guides specifically for your Venus placement and your Lilith placement by house and sign. So if you want to understand the way that you are in relationships, and also if you are attracting karmic relationships, I think that's a really good place to start. So I'll leave that linked below. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.